you book a trip to Upper Egypt, to Luxor, you probably go to Komombo, you'll go to all the Ptolemetic temples, along four of them. This is the tourism that unfortunately in the last period was a bit stagnant, but this is what they're trying to bring back again, and it will become back, because this is not just to get down in a plane and get in one place, but the Nile trip is something all non-Egyptians and Egyptians now dream about, because you see everything, because all the temples of ancient Egypt are not in the desert, they're on the Nile. So sitting on a Nile steamer, if you can call that, this is where you can see the best of Egypt.
So what about today? What about tourism today?
Today?
Yes.
Well, tourism today takes the form of many things. And to say something new, number one, every city like Cairo, what is the big attraction in summer? What is the big attraction for the tourist who would come to Cairo in summer or in winter? He would take a boat on the Nile. So he'd take it either from one of the bridges, Kasril Bridge or Zamalek Bridge or any of the other bridges, and go out for 2 or 3 hours, and that will be part of his planned tourist trip. So he'd be on the Nile, he'd enjoy the Nile. That's one form. Other forms is tourism as a restaurant, as a floating restaurant. And then we know we've got the Pharaoh, the Nile Pharaoh, and we've got
Most famous.
the Nile Cruise actually is also all that part of the whole thing. And you go out and it's part of tourism. If you haven't come to Cairo, okay, I've seen the pyramids, what do you do else? You get in one of those things, you have a beautiful touristic evening, you have entertainment on board, you bring a bit of the Orient, you might have a dancer, you might have music, and that is the second or third or fourth part of tourism on the Nile. Of course, there's the private yacht tourism,
Yes.
if I may say so. And this club is full of these, let's say, cruising boats. So many young people come and take a boat. 40 of these young people, instead of taking a felucca, which is with a sail, they take a modern boat, and they would go up to Maadi or go up to Hilwan or go up to a place called Marazi. They would go up on this side to what we call the Gold Island, Jazirah al-Dahab, or go up this side and go to the barrage, Anatir. So there again you have external tourism, expatriate tourism, you have Arab tourism, because they love to come here when it's very, very hot on the cool Nile, and you have, let's say, the imported tourism, or the tourists that come from abroad. So you see how many things are being
So what is the
served.
variance in, when you say felucca is a little bit a cheaper option,
Yes.
what is the variance in prices?
Well, look, first of all, most foreigners would prefer to get on the felucca. Why? Because it's a sailboat. You can hear the ripple of the water. You can feel the sailboat.
You actually feel the
healing.
water.
Yes,
of
it's
course.
more romantic, and
You
there's
get
no.
the feel of the Nile more.
It
on
is the
felucca.
Nile. The Nile is the felucca with
Sure.
its very traditional sail.
Yeah.
When you get into something motorized, you can go up to a very, very cheap per person. For the locals, they can go out for 3 hours for a very cheap rate. To those who go out on a big unit with its restaurants and where you can have dinner or you can listen to music.
So it
this
scales from a cheap option to a very, like you mentioned, a more of an expensive option.
Yes. You want a figure?
Yeah.
I can give you a figure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not selling a tour
I
here,
know, but we just want to give the
but-
viewers
just give
like,
an
look,
idea to our
yes, for the
viewers.
person, let's say a simple person walking along the cornice with his friends, and she says, I can't be going the Nile. Okay, he can jump in
Into a felucca.
onto a felucca or a motorized, which is even cheaper,
Oh, okay.
because they take 30 people, and he'd pay £2.
Oh, wow.
So I mean,
That's very
as if you're
reasonable.
on a bus, so £2, and it will take him at least 1 hour to 2 hours, because there are a lot of them. Okay, if you want that upper end,
yeah.
the upper end, of course, will be something more luxurious. It will be a private yacht, which will then cater for drinks or cocktails or whatever it is, and it will be then a social event. It can be 30 persons, it can be 40 persons, it can be very selective, it can be business, people can do business on it, and it can go to the extent that if this unit goes upriver, it can be 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights.
Yes.
So
So it scales.
yes, so
it
you really,
varies.
you can, if you've got your 2 pounds, you can be on the Nile. If you've got 100 pounds, you
You
can
can
be
still be on the Nile.
You can still
Well,
on the
let
Nile.
me ask you another question, Doctor, regarding also the Nile and the. Are there any international competitions, or the international competitions,
Yes.
or national competitions
Of course.
that take
There
place
we
on the
move
Nile?
there a little bit to the sports arena. The Nile is one of the main, let's say, water areas of Egypt. You have racing yachts
Okay.
on the Nile. You've got them on the Bitter Lakes, Ismailia and Port Said. You've got them on the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. So the Nile has regattas, and I think we talked before we
Yes, you
recorded
said on
about the
Friday
regatta
that
coming
was
up
taking
on
place,
next Friday.
tomorrow.
Yes, which is tomorrow
Friday,
actually.
yes, that's tomorrow.
Which is just up the river. So they will be racing in a more wide part of the Nile, which is in Maadi, between Maadi and Hilwan, and they will have about 20 or 30 yachts of one type called the Nile class, named after the Nile, and they will race. Every day will they race 3 races for Thursday and Friday, and then they will take the mean of all the results, and there you have a regatta. So you cannot imagine what the Nile is providing for us. All these different
All sorts of
facets.
different,
Yes, we talked a little bit about tourism. Well, there you have it. And nobody comes to Egypt except they take a
Having to
cruise
go by the
on
Nile.
one of the spectrum.
Sure,
So you
of the
can see.
Nile.
And then before we close up on this subject, don't forget Cairo is completely blocked. So where is the opening? There is the Nile bus. We haven't talked about the Nile
Yes,
bus.
that's
Well,
true.
the
I was
Nile
just saying
bus.
it's another source of transport
another
instead of
source
the
of
streets,
transport,
and just
yeah.
to sort of release
Yes.
the tension a little bit of
Yes.
the roads.
And the fee or the ticket on the Nile bus is very, very low. It's even lower than the tourist.
Why isn't there, sir, then enough awareness regarding the transport on the Nile? Is the media not helping, or how can we sort of make more awareness?
Well, how can I
to
tell
make
you
it-
the media is not helping if I'm sitting with the
Well,
media?
this is one way where we're actually encouraging people
But,
to maybe
let's say
use
the
more
following.
the transport on the Nile, maybe.
People who go to university,
more
for
awareness,
example,
yes.
students use the transport from the, it works like this. A station at the university, a station on the other side in Tahrir Square, a station near Zamalek, a station near the barrage. So you can take any stations.
Or actually making more sense, how can the media help
Well,
in
the
more
me-
awareness?
The media, look, the media, it's a long story. You can introduce in every single short about Egypt or about Cairo, you introduce the Nile bus. Very easy. You
Okay.
can, in your making your films, if you're making a film,
That's a
and
good idea.
there's a hero
getting
and
actually
a
shots
heroine,
where-
and they meet. Why don't they meet
On the Nile.
On the Nile?
On
I
the
mean,
Nile
why do
bus.
they have to meet in one of the big hotels?
But sir, the problem with the Nile bus is the connecting points. So
Yes.
you ride the Nile bus maybe from here, and then you cross
Yes.
the Nile the other side.
Yes.
But you want the continuation. You want to pick a bus from the other side to head to your destination. That's the problem. The transportation system is not currently connected in a firm way that allows you to jump from here to there and then take a bus in a certain
Well, look,
timing,
at the
for example.
beginning, of course, if you don't have the demand, nobody's going to put hundreds of stations. But once the demand starts, there's no reason why there should be more than, now there are 2 lines, really, basically 2 lines. But you can have, like, the buses started with very few lines. The tram started before that. But you can have as many stations as possible. But there should be a demand. It should be on time. It should not stop for any reason. But actually, even when we had all the revolution in Egypt and the Tahrir Square was blocked to a large extent, these units were running. And I used to take them from one side from here to go past Tahrir Square. And there's another station, by the way, in front of the Egyptian television. In Maspero,
Yes,
there's a station
yes, actually,
there.
that's the main
Why
one.
didn't you come with it?
But
Yes, that's a good point.
A good
Doc-
point.
Dr. Engineer Yusuf Mazhar would like to thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
enjoyed talking to you.
It's
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much.
I hope you got the answers to everything you wanted
Thank you
to
very
know.
much.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for
you,
joining
sir.
us, sir.
Let's move
Thank
on
you.
now for a very short break and returning back for more.